The area known as Ocean includes Australia and numerous island groups spread across a vast region in the Pacific Ocean. The islands of New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and Hawaii comprise over 90% of this land area. The Pacific Islands are divided into three regions: Valencia, meaning dark islands; Micronesia, meaning small islands; Polynesia, meaning many islands.
Australia, often referred to as Down Under, is the smallest of Earth's 7 continents. It is located in the southern hemisphere close to South Asia and is surrounded by the Pacific, Indian and Southern Oceans. If you look at photographs from space, you'll see that most of Australia, especially the center, has an orange color to it. That's because most of Australia is desert. Its average temperature during the summer is 30 degrees Celsius and 15 degrees Celsius during the winter. The temperatures are so high compared to, for instance, Europe because first, it's closer to the equator and secondly, because the air is drier. But let's move on for now and take a look at the people that live in Australia. Australia has a population of around 23.8 million people. If you look at the sheer size of Australia, around 7.7 million square kilometers, you'll realize that that's just a minuscule number. Statistically, that's just around 3 people per square kilometer, compared to, say, Germany, which has a population density of 243 people per square kilometer. That figure is tiny. But the population density is not evenly distributed across Australia. Most Australians live close to the eastern coast, where, in comparison to the rest, it's cooler and more humid. If you want to find someone in, for example, Central Australia, you'll probably have a hard time. In the entire region, the population is around 55,000. Its size is about 546,000 square kilometers, making the population density just 1/10 of a person per square kilometer. It is estimated that around 40% of the population of Central Australia is of Aboriginal origin. If you take a look at the entirety of Australia, that figure drops to only about 2.4%. Most of the population migrated from Europe, the US and Asia. That's also one reason why Australia has a Western and modern society. But why did people actually start migrating to Australia? Let's take a look at the history to find out. Australia's history starts somewhere around 40 to 70,000 years BC, when the first humans migrated from Southeast Asia to Australia and settled down, most likely during a glacial period when the sea level was around 140 meters below the current level. These migrations are presumed to be some of the earliest migrations from Africa. It is believed that early humans traveled from Central Africa to West Asia, South Asia and later on to Southeast Asia. Several thousand years passed while the Aboriginal Australian tribes populated parts of Australia. They organized themselves in hundreds of tribes, most of which had their own language and dialects. There is a rough estimate that before the British arrival there was a population between 315,000 and 1.25 million. The Aborigines developed a hunter-gatherer lifestyle and had spiritual and artistic traditions. Researchers have discovered rock paintings and engravings, some of which are dated back to 26,000 years BC. Most of these paintings are dedicated to the Aboriginal religions, which nowadays get summed up as Dreamtime. Aboriginals believe that the Dreamtime was a period of time at the very beginning of existence. Everything, the people, animals, the land, the tools and even the dreams were created by sacred ancestors during that time. This is the reason why Aboriginal tribes don't think that they can own land, but rather be part of it. They believe that their ancestors live in a place where space and time are non-existent, that all the knowledge got accumulated over generations and that one can access the ancestors' knowledge since everything is connected. In 1606, William Johnstone, a Dutch navigator, was the first European to discover the Australian coast when traveling from today's Jakarta over to New Guinea. Although he discovered the continent, he did not really explore the coastline. The actual size of the continent was still unknown at that point. In the late 18th century, expeditions were undertaken by British cartographer James Cook, who claimed Australia's east coast for Britain and discovered and named Botany Bay. The first British colony was set up in 1788 in New South Wales in that bay, and Sydney was founded. The reason behind the establishment of this colony were the overcrowded prisons in Britain. In Britain, life was hard. Many people were poor, crime rates were high, and punishments were strict. To help the situation, Britain decided to set up penal colonies to relieve British prisons. Though first there was peace between Aborigines and the settlers, this quickly changed when settlers occupied large amounts of land that they used for agriculture. These lands were previously used by Aborigines to hunt and gather food. In 1795, the situation escalated into two wars between the British and the Aboriginal tribes. The conflicts lasted until 1816. The Aboriginal tribes could not stand a chance against the British army, which was superior because of its weapons and military experience. The Brits also, unwittingly, used a lethal bioweapon, similarly to the one used in America. We're talking about the disease, smallpox to be specific, which killed a vast percentage of Aborigines. You see, Europeans had developed resistance against the smallpox because they were in contact with it before, while the Aborigines never had such a disease, which means that their bodies never got resistant to it. Then, a few decades later, in 1851, a large number of people migrated to Australia when gold was discovered. This was the first big wave of immigration after British colonization. There were other waves of immigration, such as the one after the Second World War. People from countries like Germany, Great Britain or Scandinavia came after the war to flee from the destroyed countries to start a new life. But before the Second World War started, another event happened that shaped Australian history. In the 20th century, from around 1910 to 1970, children of mixed-race parents were violently taken away by the government, without any legal process and often at random. We're talking about the Stolen Generation. An act, signed in 1909, the Aborigines Protection Act, was active for 60 years and allowed the government to steal mixed-race children from the Aborigines and hold onto them until the age of 18. The reasons behind the act's passing included the belief that the Aborigines were dying out since there was a drastic decrease of the Aboriginal population after the first contact, as well as the idea that mixed-race children could be trained to work and be integrated into European Australian society. The stolen children were raised in special camps set up by the government. In these camps they lived under horrific conditions. Any attempt to flee led to hard punishments. Some children were taken into care to protect them from abuse, but this wasn't effective at all. A study conducted with around 500 former stolen children reported that 17% of female and around 8% of male children were sexually abused while being at work or with the ones that were supposed to care for them. Another study found out that removed children had practically no improvement in social position compared to the children who remained with their parents, making the whole program pointless in the first place. Since 1998, the 26th of May is known as the National Sorry Day, a day when people across Australia remember the mistreatment of the stolen generation. As we can see, Australia has an impressive history going back thousands of years before times of colonization. Once only occupied by Aborigines who had a traditional and religious way of life, it is now a modern country with a truly multi-ethnic population. Since the difficult period after colonization, Australia has grown and changed drastically. It now represents a large and growing economy, which is competitive at a global level. Furthermore though, Australia also has its own culture of diversity and inclusiveness. After centuries of division, this has not always been an easy road to take.
The music of ocean is a primarily vocal, and thus effective research on music traditions often requires specialized linguistic study. With the few exceptions, instruments tend to be small and portable, most being idophones or membrophones. Slide drums are common, especially in Malaysia. The few earphones found are primary flutes, though the most famous instrument from the region is likely the Australian didgeridoo, classified as a trumpet. Myths and belief systems, along with practical knowledge and oral histories, passed from generation to generation through song and dance. Music is often considered a link to the spiritual plane. The specialists in ritual associated music traditions are common. Subtle distinctions in vocal performance and considered vital to the identity of individual social groups. Thus, music and dance are regarded as highly valued cultural property. Overview of music traditions from Oceania begins with the mysterious sound of the didgeridoo, an instrument found among the Aborigines of northern Australia, who maintain some of the planet's most intriguing and ancient cultural practices. Next, we introduce an example of one of the world's most common instrument type, the mouth harp. As we travel to Papua New Guinea, an area of major anthropological interest of several decades, while ethnomusicologists have been studying this region extensively, many music traditions remain largely unexplored due to the great cultural diversity of its indigenous populations. We then arrive one more familiar ground, Hawaii's, to examine indigenous vocal practice associated with the pro-colonial period of Polynesia, as well as more modern music, namely the Hawaiian slap guitar. Finally, we introduce the choral traditions of the Pacific through an example of collaborative vocal performance, which rivals the influence of European musical creation over the last 200 years.
The land of dreams, the world's smallest continent and largest island. This vast country is vibrant, multicultural, and full of spectacular scenery. Welcome to Australia. Join us as we discover the land down under. Misk Travel Guide brings you the ultimate travel guide to Australia. More than most other developed countries, Australia seizes the imagination. For most visitors, its name is shorthand for an endless summer where the living is easy, a place where the adventures are as vast as the horizons, and the jokes flow as freely as the beer, a country of can-do spirit and easy friendliness. No wonder Australians call theirs the lucky country. Australia is a land of staggering contrasts and spectacular beauty. Along the coast, you can explore vibrant multicultural cities, vast sand islands, ancient rainforests, and one of the planet's most awe-inspiring natural wonders, the Great Barrier Reef. In the outback, rugged national parks and red-earthed deserts offer the ultimate in adventure travel. Top it all off with a laid-back feel and friendly people, and it's no wonder Australia scores top billing on bucket lists around the world. Sydney Opera House. Mention Sydney, Australia, and most people think of the Opera House. Shaped like huge shells or billowing sails, this famous building on Sydney's Bennelong Point graces the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites and is one of the world's greatest architectural icons. Designed by Danish architect Jorn Utzon, this World Heritage listed building is Australia's most famous landmark. A 2004 renovation added walls of glass to the reception hall, offering visitors views of the harbor. In addition to the 1,500-seat Opera House, the center features a concert hall and 3 other theaters as well as multiple bars and restaurants. The Sydney Opera House welcomes millions of visitors from all over the world every year. Sydney Harbour Bridge. The iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge is both the main method of crossing the harbour and a travel destination for adventurous visitors. Rising 134 meters above the harbour, the bridge spans 500 meters, connecting Sydney's North Shore to the central business district. It was completed in 1932, 40 years before the Sydney Opera House. Affectionately called the coat hanger, this impressive feat of construction is one of the largest steel arch bridges in the world. One of the top things to do in Sydney is a guided ascent to the top of the bridge where you can enjoy spectacular views over the harbour and city. Great Ocean Road. Most top tourist destinations have spectacular driving routes, and for Australia, one of its best is the Great Ocean Road. It's Australian National Heritage listed. The road stretches for 300 kilometers along Australia's southeast coast between the Victorian cities of Torquay and Allensford. Winding through varying terrain along the coast and providing access to several prominent landmarks, including the 12 Apostles limestone stack formations, the road is an important tourist attraction in the region. Built by returned soldiers between 1919 and 1932 and dedicated to soldiers killed during World War I, the road is the world's largest war memorial. Melbourne City. Australia's second largest city is a popular stop on many Australian itineraries, especially for culture vultures. Galleries, theaters, restaurants, shops, and its distinctly European feel are the main draws of this sophisticated city on the Yarra River. It's also a green city with parks, gardens, and open spaces occupying almost a third of its total area. Highlights of the city include the Royal Botanic Gardens, the National Gallery of Victoria, and the Melbourne Cricket Stadium. Stylish, artsy Melbourne is both dynamic and cosmopolitan, and it's proud of its place as Australia's sporting and cultural capital. Blue Mountains National Park. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, beautiful Blue Mountains National Park lies 81 kilometers west of Sydney and is a popular day trip from the city. Named for the blue haze emanating from the many eucalyptus trees, this stunning park protects more than 664,000 acres of wilderness and encompasses dramatic gorges, waterfalls, Aboriginal rock paintings, and 140 kilometers of hiking trails. The most famous attractions in the park are the towering sandstone rock formations called the Three Sisters. Hiking, abseiling, rock climbing, mountain biking, and horseback riding are all popular things to do in the park. Great Barrier Reef. Visible from outer space, the World Heritage listed Great Barrier Reef is one of the largest living structures on the planet. In 1975, the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park was established to protect its fragile ecosystems, which include more than 3,000 coral reefs, 600 continental islands, including the beautiful Whitsunday Group, 300 coral cays, and inshore mangrove islands. One of the 7 wonders of the natural world, the park stretches for 2,300 kilometers along the state of Queensland on Australia's east coast. The astounding array of marine life includes soft and hard corals, more than 1,600 species of tropical fish, sharks, dugongs, dolphins, turtles, rays, and giant clams. Kangaroo Island. Nature takes center stage at beautiful Kangaroo Island off the Fleurieu Peninsula in South Australia. Australia's third largest island, Kangaroo Island is the perfect place to view the country's wildlife up close. More than a third of the island is a national park where thousands of wallabies, koalas, and kangaroos roam freely. With its windswept cliffs and spectacular rock formations, the island's landscapes are just as impressive. Easily accessible from Adelaide in South Australia, Kangaroo Island is a can't-miss destination for nature lovers everywhere. Fraser Island. World Heritage listed Fraser Island between Bundaberg and Brisbane off Australia's east coast is the largest sand island in the world and one of Australia's top outdoor adventures, especially for four-wheel drive enthusiasts. Fraser Island stretches over 123 kilometers in length and 22 kilometers at its widest point. With an area of 184,000 hectares, it is the largest sand island in the world. Fraser Island is a place of exceptional beauty with its long, uninterrupted white beaches flanked by strikingly colored sand cliffs and over 100 freshwater lakes, some tea-colored and others clear and blue, all ringed by white, sandy beaches. Bondi Beach. Bronzed bodies, blonde sand, backpackers, and surf, throw it all together and you get one of the world's most famous beaches. Located just minutes away from Sydney's central business district, Bondi Beach is a mile-long sweep of golden sand lined with red tile-roofed homes, apartments, and green spaces. It's also a great spot for a seaside stroll or picnic, and crowds of tourists and locals gather here to celebrate Christmas and ring in the New Year. A great way to soak up the sea views is to stroll along the scenic Bondi to Bronte coastal walk, which begins at the southern end of the beach and follows the coastline for 6 kilometers along sandstone cliffs. Uluru-Kata-Tjuta National Park. Deep in the heart of Australia's Red Centre, Uluru, formerly Ayers Rock, is one of the most photographed natural wonders in the country. The striking red monolith forms the centerpiece of Uluru-Kata-Tjuta National Park, a World Heritage Area jointly managed by Parks Australia and the traditional landowners, the Ananu people. Uluru, meaning shadowy place in the local Aboriginal dialect, rises to a height of 348 meters from the surrounding plain, with most of its bulk hidden beneath the Earth's surface. Also in the park are the red dome-shaped rocks called Kata-Tjuta. As the sun dips in the sky, sightseers gather to watch the colors of Uluru and Kata-Tjuta transform in the shifting light. A great way to appreciate these sacred sites is to join a tour led by Aboriginal guides and rangers.
The didgeridoo is traditionally made from tree branch or bamboo. The guttural sound of this instrument is made by relaxing the lips and blowing air through the mouth to make the lips flap or buzz. This vibration echoes through the instrument, producing a deep fundamental drone with a multitude of overtones, and the performer can create different tempos and rhythmically pattern drawn by altering the airflow with his mouth and tongue. He may also force sudden breaths of air through the instrument to increase the volume or alter the pitch and temper. Performers often add vocalizations such as humming or growling to change the sound of the instrument. This latter technique is especially important when performers attempt to imitate the sounds of birds or other animals. How was this musical instrument made? Can this music instrument play with orchestra symphony? While history songs are regarded as the most important, songs related to totems or social activities also exist. New songs in the latter two categories are sometimes composed, thought they usually are considered to have been inspired by an ancestral spirit or taught to an individual in a dream. Women do not usually perform songs along with men, and it is taboo for women to play the didgeridoo. The sound of this instrument is considered the most sacred of all sounds, and it's regarded not only as symbolic of the creative powers of ancestral spirits, but also as an actual aural manifestation of their creative energy. Female performance on this instrument is taboo primarily because Aborigines believed that exposure to the instrument's spiritual power would make a woman more fertile. causing her to give birth to many children for the community to support. While tourists often have access to staged performances of Aboriginal music, the most common context for traditional music performances are mortuary rites and boys. Songs are also performed on more informal occasions, most frequently during a korobero or nighttime ritual. Most of these events are considered sacred and are close to unattended, thus, there is little documentation of them. Dance plays an important role in ritual context. White paint is applied to the dancer's dark-skinned body according to prescribed patterns associated with a clan's totems and a specific ritual. At the nighttime Corbeiro, this paint shines in the flight light. During these events, which are believed to contact participants with ancestral spirits, the hypnotic sound of this instrument helps create a feeling of destination from time and place. How to imitate animal sounds on the didgeridoo?
Hi guys, my name's Gummeroy. I'm a descendant of two Aboriginal nations here in Australia, the Gamilaroi people and the Waka Waka. So the style in which I'm going to teach you today is a contemporary style, and it involves imitating just basic animals. For example, a lot of Aborigines in Australia, they name their animals according to how animals move and how animals sound. For example, in my language, the kangaroo is bunda, 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 bunda. So let's try our first basic vocal sound of an animal, and it is the kookaburra. Now, kookaburra got its name from the Aboriginal nation, the Gamilaroi people. You don't say kookaburra, you say gugar gaga. So if everyone can say gugar and then gagar, or tuka and taka. Gurga, gagar. So krr, then so kur kaga. So behind very, very soft vibrating lips, it allows the projection of the vocal to come out louder. So when you're doing vocals, relax the breath and project the vocals more aggressively. Or even more basically, just say the words cook and then car. So 5 times cook, 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 and then all in the higher vocal range. Okay? Imitating the basic hop of the kangaroo, I find it easier to use the word toil, and in effect you'll get the basic kangaroo hopping. Toil, 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 toil. And for a little baby kangaroo, 2, 2, 2. So toil, toil, 2, 2, 2. The basic dingo howl. The more relaxed you make your throat and the out breath, okay, don't tighten the lips too much, the more louder the vocal of the dingo will come out. The owl, okay, in my language we call the night owl bulul, but A more common name for it here in Australia is mopoke, for the simple reason. Another beautiful animal we have here in Australia is the crow. Now, up in certain parts of the Northern Territory, they call this bird the wak-wak for obvious reasons. When you listen to it talk, it says exactly that word, wak-wak. So under vibrating lips, we'll get the crow. So when you're trying to imitate animals, whether here in Australia or anywhere across the world, use your imagination and apply the method of what we commonly know today as onomatopoeia. Look at the way the animal moves, listen to the way the animal talks, and then apply it and describe it with a word. If it says wak-wak, say wak-wak. If, say for example, the slithering snake, okay, so looks, when you're looking at it, just like when you whistle, and imitate it like that. Some of my friends imitate the animal with dill-dill. It doesn't matter. It's still a very accurate, the kangaroo, it's still a very accurate description of the kangaroo, bouncing. Dill-dill-dill-dill-dill. It's more of a personal choice, whatever you feel comfortable with. So good luck, guys, with your animal imitations.